Psalm 62 speaks of a condition common to all people of all ages in all cultures. It speaks to the fact that a person cannot find true rest in life apart from God. Every age throughout history can attest to this. We see it in the endless striving to find peace and satisfaction through every avenue imaginable except through God. We live in a restless age. Many of us have incredibly busy schedules. Many people's days are filled with noise and activity. The TV, the computer, tabs, radios, stereo systems constantly compete with the time for silence that we so desperately need in our lives. We're constantly bombarded with advertisements that urge us to buy more and more. We are never satisfied because we are constantly told that we are not satisfied. Other reasons for our restlessness: hurting families, world pressures, a multitude of fears and anxieties. But the main reason for the restlessness of our age is the same as in any age: it is abandonment of God. Only contact with the true and living God can bring true rest and peace to your soul. This is what David seeks to share with us in Psalm 62. Let us observe the truths that David brings out. Truth number one: God's nature is such that we find rest in Him. Verse 1: My soul, find rest in God alone. My salvation comes from Him. Too many people have mistaken ideas of God. Some people think of God as a killer of joy, but God's word clearly teaches us that God desires that you might have life more abundantly and that you might be freed from sins that entangle you and drag you down. He desires this for you, and He knows what that best is. Others view God as a cruel taskmaster and a condemning judge. He is neither. John 3:17 says, "For God did not send His Son into the world to condemn the world, but to save the world through Him." He judges sin, but His desires is to save us and not condemn us. Remember, dear child of God, that your salvation comes from Him. To understand God, we should understand God's character. David in verse 2 of Psalm 62 writes, "God is my rock and my salvation. He is my fortress. I'll never be shaken." In verse 7 he says again, "God is my mighty rock, my refuge." When David uses the word rock here to describe God, he's referring God to be a refuge, a place for shelter for David. In other words, he's saying that God is a completely reliable foundation for his life, a sure source of strength, a place for shelter, and that nothing will penetrate. The word fortress refers to a high place. So when you combine rock solid fortification with the advantage of height, then you have a place of absolute safety. You are safe when God is your fortress. Poet John Donne wrote, "If God is my refuge, then what enemy shall pursue? If my fortress, then what attack shall succeed? If my rock, then what storm shall shake me? If my salvation, then what sadness overwhelm me? If my honor, then what slander shall harm me?" God is strong and loving. He has unlimited power, but is also loving that He chooses to use that power for our good. Trust Him and be blessed.